Basically, what we're going to incorporate and we learned today, I just want to make sure that you understand the value is first and foremost for you. Now, the beautiful thing about it, being the majority stockholder of the company, just a little bit extra from you, Ken, a little bit extra from you, Josh, and Stacy, and Casey, and Adam, that's where I get paid from. Do you understand? A little bit of your effort, Ben, and Joe, and Stephen, that's where I get paid from. That's where the profits come from. So, again, I want to make sure that you realize first and foremost that it's for you. And if you take it and apply it, it doesn't help us any to come in here an hour a week, almost every week during the year, if you don't apply what we're trying to learn. You being here, by the way, is not optional, but you applying what you learn is. As they say, change is inevitable, but acceptance of it is optional. So I want to make sure that you grasp that before we get into this. Okay, volunteer. I need somebody to come up here who's got good handwriting. You have good handwriting?
I have awesome handwriting.
You want to do it then?
Sure.
Come on.
At least I could do it 5 minutes late.
That's good. Thank you, Jerry.
Yes, sir.
Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to draw a line down the middle of what space you have available. And on one side, I want you to write the word successful. Successful, S-U-C-C-E-S-S-F-U-L.
I was just going to write G.
Excellent. Put a line under it. Yeah, you need a different color?
We need a darker color.
Yeah, go just right over that with a darker color. Oh, you're going to just totally do it over. Okay, go ahead. No time to waste. Go ahead. Successful, put a line under it. And put failure over on the other side. Okay, while he's doing that, I want you each to tell me the characteristics of a successful person. What are they?
Diligent.
One at a time, what?
Diligent.
Diligent? Okay, spell that. Yeah. You got it? G-E-N-T? Looks good, man. Excellent. Adam? Disciplined. Kelly?
Attitude.
Okay. Attitude.
Perseverance.
Actually, there's supposed to be, isn't there an S in there? Okay. D-I-S-C. It's okay, man. Don't let it bother. Maybe I should have said writing and spelling. I just busted your chops. That's funny. Okay. All right, you got attitude. Yes. Mel?
Integrity.
Integrity.
Oh, God.
Anti-disestablishment.
All right. Everybody. Keisha?
Intentional.
Intentional. Eric?
Positive.
Positive. Okay. Good. You had one, didn't you?
Accountable.
Accountable. Accountability. Accountable. Exactly. Brian?
Motivated.
Motivated. When you say motivated, do you mean self-motivated?
Yeah.
You don't have to be cattle prod to do the job, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Motivated. Anybody else? Yes.
Consistent.
Consistent. Consistency or consistent, one of those two. Good, great. Sane. Compassionate, very true.
Sincere.
Sincere. Josh?
Dog lover.
Dog lover. Okay.
I'll leave that one off.
Dog, you can write it on there. What the heck? Consider I am a dog lover as well, so. David?
I'm going to go with relentless.
Relentless. Oh, a recent book reader over there on Relentless. Me too. Anybody else?
Helpful.
Helpful. Nick says helpful. Stacy?
Dependable.
Dependable. You might have to write over to the left of that, the next ones. Eric?
Problem solver.
Problem solver. Very good. Mel?
Humble.
Humble. Very good. Humility, humble, whichever.
Humble's easier to spell.
I agree. Spell that then. In the world.
Meaning the words, you know.
Very efficient.
Do. Uh-oh. What in the world happened to my doggone?
Perseverance.
Did I delete my notes?
I don't know how to spell it if anybody wants to help.
Good grief, what happened?
P-
I did delete it by accident. That wasn't too bright, wasn't it? Okay. Must have hit some weird button. I got it on here though. Okay. All right, anything else, guys?
Adaptable.
Adaptable,
How about organized?
organized, that's true, very good. Time management, organized.
Coachable?
Coachable, very good. Did you have another one, Eric? Go ahead.
I've seen stuff like this before, like read every day.
Read every day,
Well
Okay.
read.
well read. Learner,
Learner, yeah. 'cause
Either one?
That could be personality, like.
all right, any more? Yes, Barbara?
Gracious.
Gracious, okay, good, gracious. Did you say grateful? What'd you say?
I was just thinking of an easier way.
Oh, I got you. Okay. That's, yeah, it looks, okay. Any more? That's it. Got any more? Okay, move over to the other side, Jerry. What are the characteristics of a person typically who is a failure? The mindset, let's start with that first. What is it?
Lazy.
Lazy, good. Zane, what is it?
We're talking about
Characteristics?
characteristics of a constant failure. I mean, everybody's a failure.
No.
Everybody's failed.
I don't mean constant failure. I'm just saying characteristics of someone long-term who is going to be a failure. What are they basically doing every day?
Pitying.
Either consciously or subconsciously. What?
Pitying.
What's the word?
Petty. So
Petty. Being petty. P-E-T-T-Y? Yeah.
Like
Pet-
self-pity.
Oh,
Feeling
pity.
sorry for yourself.
Okay, well, okay, pity too. Self, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Sloppy.
Sloppy.
Writing.
Aimless.
Negative.
Negative.
Procrastinator.
Procrastinator.
Oh, thanks.
Jerry, thanks.
Entitled.
Entitled. Yeah.
That's it. Aimless.
Aimless. Yeah. Aimless. Mm-hmm.
Blaming others.
Blaming others. Yeah.
Victim.
Victim mentality. Yeah. Nick.
Dramatic.
Oh, thank you. That's good. Drama queen, drama king. Dramatic, Nick says. That's good. Josh? Inconsistent.
Selfish.
Did you? Oh, you got to do the drama. You got to. Yeah. Drama queen. DQ. That's good. All right. What else? What else?
Unreliable.
Okay. Unreliable. That's very true.
Excuse maker.
Okay. Excuse maker.
Selfish.
Hang on. You can't write too fast. Hang on a second. Selfish. Any more?
No goals, maybe.
Probably aimless took care of that, probably.
Judgmental.
Oh, not focused. I mean, you could put, what? Judgmental? Judgmental's good. Write that on there.
I feel like with a failure, what makes it ultimately a failure every time is just not learning from your mistakes.
Okay. Not learning from mistakes.
I would say the single point of a failure would be the mindset that I don't believe I can. No belief.
Lack of confidence.
Self-defeating.
Lack of confidence. Anything else? No? Okay. I think that's good. Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Jerry.
Yes, sir.
Hand for Jerry. All hail. Okay. Here's the thing. Because all of these, whether it be this side or this side, would you agree it is a one day in the making or a lifetime in the making? Lifetime. Because if you tend to have these, then you get up every day with an entirely different attitude than you do if this is you. Now, Stacy, if you were in charge and you had the choice between two types of employees, which would you want?
Successful.
What kind of company can you build over here on the failure side?
A bankrupt company?
A bankrupt company, very good. Now, think about this for a second. Regardless of the position, you know, the salespeople, historically speaking, I've been a salesperson all my life, without exception, let me emphasize that a little more, is they always say someone else has better what than me? Leads. And we keep going through the different departments of the company, and the ECs can say they have better clients than I do. In the engraving department, they have easier programs to engrave, or they have easier things than I do. In support department, they can say they have easier tasks than I do in my job. They don't have to do this. They don't have to deal with this. It's always that case. You are not alone in your thoughts. And everybody in here would be lying if you didn't say that occasionally you have those thoughts. Occasionally. Now, if we were to have a company built of these type people, and by the way, let me clarify this. You're only as strong in a chain as your weakest what? Weakest link. And everybody in here is a link in the MyEmployees chain. Period. So, if we had guys in the engraving department who, in production, that didn't feel like doing but 7 jobs instead of the 9 or 10 that they could get done during that time. And you know what? I worked at companies. I could tell you, man, it was amazing. That short little time period that I worked, two months at Toys R Us, I will never forget the guys using the walkie-talkies. This is, you know, pre-cell phones where you couldn't text them or something. And they were telling each other where the manager was. Why? Yeah, but they also, okay, he's heading back. Okay, look busy. You know, you can always sandbag a little bit on something that you could have done but you didn't do. It's easier to put off for tomorrow what should have been done today. And the problem is all those tomorrows are not guaranteed. You're only guaranteed what you have today. And if you take it where you're only doing 90%, or even 80 or 75% of what you could have done that day, and you do that every day, then you will not be very far down the road compared to others. Does that make sense? So if we have a company up here and we've got sloppy, back on stay on the engraving for a second. You know, it's easier just to pull up a job and say that looks good enough. I'll change the title, that looks good enough. When you could move a little bit and more better on spacing, and you're talking to somebody who's done it a lot, it's easier just to pull it up and say it's good enough. And every position in here, you could say that's good enough. And the problem is that if it's not good enough, multiply that times 53 people. See the problem? You know, we tell managers out there, when you do an effective recognition program, if you have 10 people and they actually raise the bar a little bit and you get 10% more out of each person, you have 11 employees, but you're only paying for 10. Do you understand that? 10% times 10, one person. You can get a lot more done with 11 people than you can 10 if everybody's doing the same thing. It just is. But it's easier, again, for us to do quite a bit less sometimes, a little bit less every day. We'll accept that easily. The problem is once you accept moving the bar back this way, going back from your full performance back this way, it's easier to do the same thing. And if you're in a particular department and they're not doing what they should do, then everybody as a group moves back this way. That's when you get in trouble. That's why you always want to have people that in each department that are really shooting for the moon. Because if everybody accepts complacency, then the company, regardless of who it is doomed. Not today necessarily, but death by what? 1,000 cuts. Little things. Little thing here, little thing there, little thing here, little thing there. They add up and they will destroy any company. Obviously negative, you're always looking for the downside of whatever it is that happens, not the upside. And what you tend to think about, you do. What is that?
You attract more of it or you become that.
Absolutely. You're like a magnet. You know, and we used to have an employee, and I called him the godfather of wine, W-H-I-N-E, not W-I-N-E. Why did I call him that? Remember. Tell me. What? Go ahead. Misery loves company. What was that, David?
Because everyone went to him to whine and he listened.
That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Everyone with a complaint went to him because he had that ear to want to hear the whining and moaning. And people say, oh, he's going to listen. I'll go tell him. I can't tell anybody else because he's the one that will listen to me whine. Instead of doing the right thing and saying, you know what, that's really petty. Go do your job. Really, that's what you're going to come in here and whine about? Really? Yeah. And the problem is he got a reputation for that. That's why I called him the godfather of wine. Is he here today? No. And remember what I've told you in the past. 3 times he has asked to come back, begged and pleaded to come back. The last time, tears, emotion on the phone with me. And I said, no. Because a person who was doing it as long as he was doing it, and you know what? It all comes back to me ultimately. I allowed it to happen. My fault. I should have nipped it in the bud the first time I heard it. I should have said, not again. Don't do it again. And maybe he would still be here today. So I failed him by not putting my foot down. And his manager as well. My responsibility as the CEO of the company is to make sure you have what you need to do your job. But I also want to make you, by doing these book club meetings we've done for more than a decade now, longer than that, I'm trying to help you have a better personal life. I want you to have a better marriage. Are all the marriages going to make it? Nope. But if I can do one little thing that will have an impact on that and somebody, you remember when we read Dale Carnegie's book years ago, 4 people that were at the company, and there were 36 employees at the time. 4 people said, Dave, reading that book saved my marriage. Ultimately, 1 of them did not make it. 3 are still going strong. Were you going to say something, son? You just kind of like...
Oh, no.
Okay, all right. That's fine. So, and you're looking back at this. I mean, let's just, real fast. I mean, procrastinator, I'll do it tomorrow again, like I was talking about earlier. Entitled. What does that mean?
I think they deserve everything and give it to them.
Exactly. You owe it to me. I showed up. You owe it to me. Aimless, just getting through the day, man. Just doing my job today. I'm showing up. I'm a grunt. Is basically what I am. I show up, I do the job, I do just enough not to get fired and to stay off the manager's radar. Remember those guys with the walkie-talkies? He's heading back. Look alive. Act like you're doing something. Blaming others, personal responsibility, I guess you could say those words. It's easier to blame others. Victim mentality, again, like I said earlier, they got better leads than I've got. Do you know what? I have heard that forever. And you know what? I've said it when I was in sales. But honestly, looking back on it, you make the most of whatever it is you have. And you know what? If you can't close the tougher things, you're really not going to maximize the good things. You know, every salesperson in this company has ever worked here has got some things to help them get going and some things that were fertile ground that have nobody's messed with. And it's amazing to me how many times in the past and even in the present, some things that were given to people, they called and tried 2 or 3 people and said, I'm not working at it anymore. It's not worth it. You put it on a shelf and it sits in your account for 6 months and you give it to somebody else and they blow it out. And they blow it out. Could have been yours. Could have been your success. Could have been one of your 5. The 5 veins of gold. Don't ever put all your eggs in one basket. Diversify your efforts to make sure. You know, we lost Walgreens, right? If we'd have done nothing but Walgreens, if that's all you were selling, you'd have been in a world of hurt. Inconsistent, drama queen or drama king. Oh my goodness, it's exhausting, isn't it, to have to deal with drama. If you've never managed people, and you've got people that are drama after drama after drama. It's the latest thing. It's the newest thing. It's my newest ailment. It's my newest thorn in the flesh, if you will. It's my newest headache. And they constantly have them. But it ultimately comes down to excuses. Period. Unreliable. Casey. If you were engraving nameplates and you just flippantly, you know what? I think Robbie looks better with a Y on the end. You know, if they were stupid enough to put it something else, I'm just sending it R-O-B-B-Y. You have to pay attention to being reliable in whatever it is you have to do for the company. You know what? Let's go back. You have to be reliable as a spouse. You have to be reliable as a father. You know, one of the most powerful things to children, and this is where we are as a country, and this is an indictment, if you will, of men, I being one, is men have dropped the ball as fathers in this country. By far more so than the women have dropped the ball. It's the men. And if you look at the crime statistics, if you go back and you find out what the underlying family entity has been, is there's no father around. And they're basically lashing out. There's no emotional stability of the home, which is the foundation from where you learn. And where you feel comforted, and where you feel safe. Excuse maker, a lack of accountability. Selfish, it's all about you. And like I said in the beginning, first and foremost, it is about you. But it's not only about you. And I've said, and you guys have heard me say 1,000,000 times, if you are not happy here, what did I say to do? What did I say? Go somewhere else that you can be happy. Life is too short. You know, I really don't think we have a real problem with that here. Rarely ever do I have even a hint from people that they're not happy being here. But I don't always know that. Neither does your manager. For the most part, they probably do because they're working with you on a daily basis. But the thing about it is that you are ultimately responsible for you. And if you're not happy, then find something that will make you happy, that gets you where you want to get out of bed in the morning. Remember I told you, Mondays, most heart attacks. Why? Because people don't want to go to work. They dread it. After the weekend, they get up and they have a heart attack. They don't want to go that bad, which is pretty tough. Judgmental. It's easier to make excuses than it is to make results. And that's why people go down the path of least resistance. Because if I say I'm the problem, if I say anything remotely that says I dropped the ball along the way, then it's back on me. But if I blame Ken or, I blame Allison or Lee, it's easier to blame Lee, but there you go, that's right. Then I have pushed off my responsibility on someone else. I make myself feel better about myself, but ultimately I am the failure. Because I did not accept it. The responsibility of being the person I should be. If you're basically the type person and you go through life being like the ball in a pinball machine, get smacked back and forth. Wow, that's a tough life. And I can tell you the people that happens to. It's the people not doing what they should do. Whether that be here, whether that be at home. When I was going through my time in the wilderness, if you want, my wife, when we, after a few years of being married and everything, she was very confident that old Dave knew what he was doing. But when Dave lost his job and went through 7 jobs in 3.5 years, can you imagine that she had a little bit of doubts about old Dave? And then ultimately having to move back home with mom and dad, lots of doubts about old Dave. Lots of doubts. Why? Because I was no longer, what word?
Successful.
That too. Consistent. She did not look at me as someone who was consistent. And especially, historically speaking, females are more that safety thing. They want to know they're being taken care of. They want to know they have the safety, the safe harbor, if you will, that is the home. Historically speaking, more than men. And I, in her eyes, rightly so, failed her in that regard. And as I told you, I told her, honey, I wouldn't blame you if you'd have left me. And she said, you remember what she said? If I knew you weren't doing all you could do, I probably would have. We all have tough times that we go through in life. I just got back from one of the masterminds, the one down in Orlando. And again, I see this happening, is when you ask people, how many of you had a really tough time before you became successful? Almost without exception, that's the case. I was the only one this time who actually moved home with mom and dad. But there was one couple, actually the one when I was in New Orleans, they actually said they lived in a little shack thing back behind the parents' house. They didn't have to move in the house with mom and dad like I did, my family. But as you know, there's always consequences for what we do and what we do not do. There's the benefit of doing what we should do, or the consequences of what we did not do. We failed to do. You enjoy the fruits of success, Zig Ziglar said, or what? You pay the price. If you don't have that, in essence, I'll summarize, I paraphrase. You're going to put in the effort, but there's going to be consequences if you don't. Not learning from mistakes, man, you keep doing. Remember, I use the rocket analogy. How many times have you started off from the rocket pad, launch pad, if you will? Oh, I'm having a great pay period, or we're really cranking, and then you lose, and you go back. And you start over again multiple times, over and over and over again. And you know what? I hate it. And there are people that I see do that here. In any company, you're going to see it, quite frankly. Start off, go back down. Pumped up, boom, we'll go back down. Do they ever reach the moon or do they ever reach the stars? No. They have this. A failed life. Successful. Diligent. What is diligence? What is it?
Working hard every day.
Yeah. Disciplined. If you're going to be diligent, you have to be disciplined. True. You have to have the right attitude because you're going to get up some days and something's not going to happen that you were expecting. And you can let it derail you. And it'll take your eye off the ball. Life happens to all of us. It's not just you. It happens to all of us. We all have things happen that we weren't expecting. No exceptions. Integrity. Man, it breaks my heart. And you guys know I've warned people in this kind of stuff. I would say to them, you're going down a path. It's like I said to the salespeople one time. I was up here in just a sales meeting, and I said, you guys are like tightrope walking. You're like doing just enough. Okay, I'm just enough right there. Oh, let me back off for a week or two. I'll get back up there. Yeah. Little cattle prodding, and I'm back up here. That is a prescription for disaster. That is not a prescription for success, period. First and foremost, the number one characteristic of not just salespeople, but all people from all departments in this company is self-motivation, not external. You know, Jake came up with a new version of the ERRC. And it's impressive. It's going to be an app. I like it. And I praised him, that was Monday, I guess, 2 days ago, for initiative. He wasn't asked to do that, but he took it upon himself to do it. I like that. That's huge to a business owner or a manager, for someone to take initiative without being asked to do something. It's called taking ownership. It's called I'm all in, sucker. I'm all in. The fastest and easiest way for your manager or your boss to see if you're really all in is to do more than you're paid for. And I am amazed at the stupidity of people. And I'm talking about across the entire population. Their mind is, I want to do just enough to keep my job, regardless of position. Just enough to keep my job. Stay below the radar like those guys in the back of the warehouse at Toys R Us. Look busy when they're paying attention. But after that, you know, I told you guys back, you know, those who have been with me a long time know about when I was working road construction. And I remember back when I was in college. And I'll never forget this phrase as long as I live, because it happened twice at 2 different jobs in my lifetime, almost verbatim, word for word. And because I really wanted to give more than I was paid for, I was doing more than other people were doing. Pardon me, I've had it 3 times. I just remembered one other one. Working road construction, I was digging manholes and doing the brickwork and everything. And I remember vividly a couple of the guys telling me, slow down, make a job out of it. You're going to get it done too quick. We'll have to go somewhere else and do another job. I always loved getting behind contractors, whether it be electricians or plumbers or whatever else, when it's like 4:30 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They're doing like 20 miles below the speed limit as they drive back to the company so they can turn in the truck. But they don't want to get back too early. They can say, you know what, I didn't have time to go to Tony's house today. I'll have to do that tomorrow. Pay attention to that. I do, and you will see it. Pay attention to the trucks that are driving really slow. You'll see what I'm talking about. I could do that tomorrow when you could have done it today. And typically the person, when they need a plumber, when do they need it? Now. Right? Okay. Intentional. I remember when David Strange was a salesperson years ago, I remember what he did. He wrote a number on the board that was on there, on his whiteboard. What was that number, David?
1743.
And that meant what, David?
That was 20% growth over my previous year's sales.
20% growth over his previous year's sales. That number was something that he wanted to hit when, David, once a week? Every day. I told you when I started the company, someone tell me what I did every day. I had a game. I was the only employee. Except for my wife, she did some too.
Steak if you make a sale, burger.
How much was the sales number though? You're right, it was a steak. What was the number? Thank you, Jerry. It was $1,000 a day in sales. This is back when a regular program was a couple hundred. $1,000 a day. Man, I had to sell roughly two title programs a day, or I did not get a steak. No one, and I repeat, no one was out there saying, make one more call. Make one more call. This is back before cell phones were so popular. I remember when I bought my first cell phone, it was I'll never forget this, $742 for the phone, and like 20-some cents a minute. But when I first started the company, I had no money. So I couldn't call home. It was 25 cents or whatever on the pay phones back then, a minute. And I needed the money, I could not. So I was out there by myself, and me against the world. That's why I read so many books. That's why I listened to so many tapes, because I had, just like you, I have good and bad days. I had to stay pumped up. I had no one else to do it. So that $1,000 day, I wanted to reward myself so I could have momentum to take me to the next day. So when you go home at 5 or whatever, when I was on the road, I would call on restaurants. I couldn't call on retail. Pardon me. I couldn't call on real estate, which is another thing that I was selling a lot of at night. But I could on retail, and I could on restaurants. Because you'd be surprised, and you already know this, those of you who work retail, those managers were typically working 50 to 60 hours a week. Right, Angela? Right, David? Who else retail here? Correct me, am I wrong? Am I wrong? That's the hours you worked. And I would go in there, otherwise I'd be sitting in a hotel room or something. What good was that going to do? Was that making me anything? No. Is you sitting in your chair because you're actually here and I'm showing that I'm working the hours, but I'm not going to make that extra call. Matter of fact, I'm not going to make them for the next hour. I'm going to piddle. I'm going to piddle. And everybody here can do that. Again, 10% less. If you got 10 employees, you really only have 9. You really only have 9. Now multiply that times 5. 5 less employees, roughly, what we have. Positive has to come from you. Has to come from you. Your spouse sometimes you're not going to feel real positive when you leave the house. Told you take the trash out. How hard is it? You come in here, you want to kick the dog on the way out, and you got to stay positive. Because life happens again. It's just the way it is. Accountability. When I was on the road, who was I accountable to? Myself. I told you what? Do you remember the time that I actually broke you can't have a steak if you don't sell $1,000? I did it one time. And that's because I saw a buddy of mine I hadn't seen in a long time. We went out to eat and we ate a steak. He even paid for it, by the way. I don't know if I've ever said that before. I didn't have too much money. I ate it. And you know what? After I did it, I was like, I basically betrayed myself. And honestly, I was aggravated at myself. I should have ate cockeyed chicken. And I didn't want chicken. You guys know I love steak. So, you have to be, what's that was it? That's Shakespeare, to thine own self be true. Motivated consistency, man, consistency. I don't care what position you are in. If you are not consistent, you will not be in the top third. If you're not consistent in this company, you won't even be in the top half. Compassionate. I had a conversation this week with one of the managers about one of the individuals on the team. And I wanted to make sure that person is okay. Because I really, really, really feel that that person is busting their butt to be successful here. And how patient am I, managers, if I know somebody's goofing off and sandbagging? How compassionate am I on those people? Nah. Always. And I know every manager out there, and I assure you none of them would argue with me. Who gets more of my quality time and they want my attention that you would give them to if you were the leader? The sandbaggers and the goof-offs or the ones who are really, really trying to do all they can do? If you called up my wife on my phone right here, you called her up and said, honey, Barbara, you're not going to call her honey. You better not. Anyway, let's just say that. Anyway, this is a conversation I had yesterday with her. I said, babe, who in the family is doing all they can do and falling short? And I rattled off a few. Family and friends that I know and that she knows are doing all they can do. Notice I didn't ask, honey, who's in the family is a sandbag and a goofing off? Who can we throw some money at? Why? Because here are those people. Can you read that from the back? What does that say? Entitled, right? Entitled. That, to my core, understand one thing about me. I don't want you to ever forget this. I am all about helping people that are doing the best possible job they can do, whether it be here or somewhere else. You even go back to the church or something. I've had some missionaries and things like that I found out were sandbagging and were goofing off. I cut them off. Right? You have to do that. Because as a Christian, first and foremost, I'm responsible for what I do with my money that the Lord's given me. So be compassionate when you can. We're doing the Make-A-Wish thing, the foundation for several of our employees are putting in a lot of time and effort on that. They're not getting paid to do it. They're doing it out of what? Where'd it go? Compassion. It's beyond themselves. We were having this conversation I ate lunch with my siblings and my mother yesterday, the ones that are in town. And we were talking about the people out there that we feel like are deserving of help, and those that aren't. We talked about, I've worked with my father's worked with some different pastors, and I've worked in, a couple churches myself over time. And not everybody that works in church is worth a flip. Just like any other place where people congregate, whether it be companies, clubs, whatever. And the thing about it is that we talked about, okay, what is it? Sometimes people are they're eaten up with basic, not just negativity, but they're just depressed all the time. And I said something about, I read years ago, if you're a type person like my dad suffered with manic depression, is that the research is there. If you get out and you exercise, you get those endorphins to your brain. It helps you. You get out of that dark cloud. And Paul was there. We talked about it yesterday, didn't we? Yes? Okay. Or you can sit, what? Self-focused, right. And the beautiful thing about doing something like they're doing with the charity is it's not about them, it's about somebody else. What's that old saying is that you get more by giving than you do by receiving? Better to give than to receive? Is that what it says? Now, if you've never given anything of yourself or any little extra to help somebody else, you really don't understand that. But I highly recommend that you do it if you've never done it. Make one little thing, even if you go out and you give some clothes and some toys and stuff like that to Make-A-Wish, you're helping others. You got to feel good about that. You got crap that you're not using. I got mine too, which I'm bringing some more on. Sincere. Keep an eye on my time. Sincerity. Anybody got a comment on sincerity? Yes, Brandon.
And I just think it's an opportune time for me to share this.
Okay.
This is a shout out to Tony,
Mhm.
because those of you who know, my oldest brother's in Chapel Hill, he's dying. And Tony, he's always been, of course, dedicated and focused in terms of where I need to be and how I can improve to be a better EC. And but his sincerity always comes across like, the numbers. You got to make money for the company, but he allows me to have the time to be flexible, to be there for my brother and my family, and so it's genuine. I spoke with Adam, I think last week, when I was heading out right before the baby came and everything, or after the baby came, but it makes you feel safe. I've never experienced what I'm experiencing now. But you do. You feel safe when you're going through, and you have people such as Tony, your boss, who can be sincere, and even a lot of the coworkers who have offered their support. So I just say thank you for that.
Good. I appreciate you sharing that, and I'm glad you did, because this is a good point. As a manager, if I have someone who's a consistent performer and they come to me and say, Dave, I've got this issue, I will do everything I possibly can to make sure that they're okay. On the other side of that coin, if I have someone who's a drama king or drama queen and every day's a disaster, I get jaded. You know what jaded is? Dulled by excess. Is every day is an emergency. That's not the case for Brandon. We're extremely compassionate, extremely flexible with people we know are doing the job and they're not sandbagging and they're not goofing off, than we are with people that are the same always, whining, got some disaster because their life, they totally don't manage things very well at all. Do you understand that? Does that make sense to you? Good. Dog lover? That's a positive. Believe that? Relentless, as David said. I had him and Josh, I shared a book with them that I was reading. And it's a NBA coach, if you will, performance coach. Did Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and some others. Relentless. Dogged determination. Dogged determination doesn't need somebody saying, do your job, do your job. Do your job, do your job, do your job. It's exhausting. It's exhausting for a manager to have to do that. Helpful. Somebody asked you for help, help them. Think it like it was flipped the other way. Put yourself in their position. You got a new person coming in, they need advice, they need help. Mel was telling me that Eric and Barbara are each other's cheerleaders, the two newest salespeople. I love that. I love it. You should be. You're on the same cockeyed team. Me being successful doesn't take anything away from you unless I steal your leads. That's different. But other than that, we all win, right? Dependable. Oh my goodness. I remember on the back of the dorm door going into my dorm room, it said this, the number one thing on the back of it, it said the greatest ability is dependability. Oh, I will never forget that as long as I live. If you don't show up, you can't put up. And if you don't show up very often or sporadically, unreliable, excuse maker, not learning from mistakes, aimless, procrastinator, negative, sloppy, lazy. Bottom line, and time is almost up, ask yourself this question. If everyone in the company did their performance like I do mine, how successful would the company be? And you know, we've got varying levels of skill in each department. We've got varying levels of commitment in each department. But if everybody, and I mean everybody, asked themselves that question, if you were the only person that was the defining factor of whether we were successful as a company or a failure, and it was on your shoulders 100%, and we rise or we fall on you alone, how would we do? Would we be here? And you know what? You have to answer that yourself. Consistency, dependability, same basically. I depend on you to be consistent. Your manager depends on you to be consistent. They depend on you to be helpful to other people. Depend on you to help people stay focused. Somebody comes into you and starts yapping and yapping and yapping, and it's supposed to be like 5 or 10 minute break, and oh, good gracious, it's been a half hour. You didn't do anybody any good. That goes for whatever department, it doesn't matter. If you're taking them off their job, and I'm not talking about from my back pocket, I'm talking about from your performance. And the managers will tell you, I asked them, who's worthy? Who on your team do I need to bump up? And they'll tell you more often than not, I asked that. Because I want to know. How much more valuable is Stacy this year than she was last year? They should be able to tell me that. You should be able to tell me that. David said earlier, what was the number on the board? 1743. Who set that number, you or Mel? You did. That's exactly right. Not cattle prodded. Not cattle prodded. Self-motivated. Self-driven. I do not know what the future holds for us. No clue. But I do believe, and we'll close, I do believe sincerely that we will be headed for some tough times in this country. Not just in this country, but in the world. And you want to test our mettle? It's going to be tested. Your mettle, as an individual, is going to be tested over the next few years like it's never been tested before. And if everybody's doing what they need to do, maybe we'll be okay. Maybe. But as I've said, we're going to have justify our existence on people's P&L. Whether you're selling them, whether you're keeping them, whether you're engraving them, or whether you're supporting them. Can't drop the ball. Got to show up every day. Got to be the best of the best. Got to be remarkable. What does the word remarkable mean? Do you remember? Let me tell you. Remarkable means worthy of being remarked about. Remarkable. Are you worthy? We do the shout outs. You're worthy. Are you worthy every day? Again, if you were the only person in the company and everybody else's jobs depended on your success, as a salesperson, Ken. Allison as an EC. Renee, collecting invoices. Joe, making sure it gets done, man. Matthew, doing the marketing, make sure we get people's attention, we convert it. 100% on your shoulders. Would we be here? Would we be successful? Would we continue to grow? Just want you to be honest with yourself. This is something that I normally would have done in January, but really, it's kind of been driven home to me lately. Some of the conversations I've had with other CEOs and other entrepreneurs, just this is a massive need. They are so frustrated. We have an amazing team compared to some of the horror stories I hear. My goodness, I'm like, seriously? You know, there's one guy who's got a lot bigger company than we've got, very successful, but he has no people skills. I'm helping him with that. He's exceptionally good at what he does. He's going to help me with that. But I'm going to help him with the other stuff because he is detached emotionally from his people. He goes through people big time. You cannot ever build a successful company when you are churning through people. Just can't do it. Thank the good Lord that we have very low turnover here. Why? Because we try to hire the right people in the first place, right? Don't we, Adam? Are we always successful? No, somebody slips in every once in a while. But you know, the beauty of having a world-class team like we have here is that they stand out as being the wrong fit for the company. And those newer salespeople, we've got a couple new ones, is they will attest when you were hired, or even before you were hired, both of you guys, I said to them, and you know, Ken and Kelly and others too, when they came before, I don't care how much money you make the company, you will not treat the other employees like they're your slaves. Not happening. You will not talk down to them. You will keep your attitude in check. I love self-confidence, but as my Uncle Gary once said when I was a young man, there's a fine line between self-confidence and arrogance. I don't care if you make a ton of money for the company. If you don't fit in with my other people and you're a thorn in my side and your manager's side, you're out of here. I don't care if you just sold the biggest sale in the history of the company. And God knows my heart. He knows I'm dead serious about it. I don't care. And we could use the sale, as we all know. Doesn't matter. I will not compromise the integrity of the company, the culture that we have here, the people that we have here by bringing a cancer into this business. Well, we'll get them out of here faster than they can say their cockeyed name. And I'll drop kick them out the door myself. So let's do what we need to do every day, and do not assume you have tomorrow or next week or next month. Do not go home each day without leaving it on the field. Like you're in sports, when you're playing, don't give half effort and go home and say, at the end of the day, man, I gave it my all, I'm awesome. You know, you lie to your spouse and say, no, I couldn't have possibly done any more. I'm not doing that good, but I couldn't possibly have done any more. Be honest. Live with the character and integrity. All right? Have a good day.